justice. That's what a lot of people have been proclaiming and gearing towards, and that's always what we fight for. Justice is not a bad thing. Justice is a good thing. And a lot of us are crying out for justice right now. There's a lot of people in this country crying out for justice. So a lot of people interpret what justice is differently, and a lot of people think that different wrongs have been committed, and they're demanding a lot of different things be done about those wrongs. So today I want to talk to you about what do we do when justice is paralyzed, when we have all this crazy stuff going on, people rebelling in the stock market, attacking hedge fund managers, people upset over the election, people upset over the lockdowns, all these things that are taking place in our world. Let's talk about that. You know, it's funny to me when I'm talking with folks that don't believe the way I believe or think the way that I do, especially when it comes to Christianity and the Bible and God's word and the existence of God, and they start talking about injustices that happen. It's this big thing. Justice is something that's cried out for a lot. And it's funny to me too, because I think a lot of people would really feel differently about the Bible if they took the time to really understand where a lot of the books are coming from. There's a lot of major and minor prophets in the book that spend a lot of time crying out about injustice. And that God's actions against Israel and God's actions against his people at the end of finally judging them and Babylon coming in and taking over is pronounced as a judgment. And it's pronounced as a judgment due to injustice. And it's interesting, in one of the prophet's books, Habakkuk, in chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, it says, "O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear, or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity? And why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted." So what do we do when justice is paralyzed? We've had a lot of situations happen. Just recently in the stock market, we see a lot of people banding together to stick it to the hedge fund. It's hedge fund. Man, it's a tongue twister. They have been banding together to stick it to the hedge fund managers and try to stick it to people and one percenters that they feel like have put us in this situation. Or maybe you're one of those people that lean a little bit right, and you think that Trump and what happened with him is a good example of injustice. I'm very blessed because I have a lot of friends that lean on both directions of the aisle, and I have a lot of friends that have, said that they stood against all the riots and the burning of people's homes and buildings that have been taking place across this country in rebellion against systemic racism. Because their stance is that how is that justice when you're fighting against injustice and you commit injustice against another person? How is that justice? How is it justice when you call out those people for destruction, yet when it happens on the right and people storm the Capitol and innocent people die and stuff gets destroyed, and now all of a sudden you're sitting back and saying, no, that wasn't us, that was Antifa, when clearly there were non-Antifa members there? Is that injustice? Is it injustice when, because of years of crimes being committed against you, that when someone is speaking up against you or may disagree with you, you automatically disqualify them because of their skin color? And I'm not just talking about any specific skin color, any kind of racism at all, that you would dismiss someone because of the color of their skin, or their opinion or what they have to say is invalid because of that, is pure racism. Is that justice? I have some friends that do lean left politically that are very concerned over climate change. And I saw them sharing memes about the pipeline workers that lost their jobs. Thousands and thousands of people put out of work, now have to figure out a way to feed their families. And they were making fun of them, saying that they shouldn't be complaining because of the damage they were supposedly doing to the environment. Is that justice? Is it justice when the political figure that you want to win does something wrong, very, very wrong against someone, commits very serious crimes, and you turned a blind eye to it because you're biased and you want that political figure to win. Is that justice? Is it justice when a pastor does something incorrect in the church or does something very, very wrong and damaging to people in the church, and the board turns a blind eye to it and tries to swipe it under the rug and keep moving forward? Is that justice? Is it justice now that because those things happen, that we automatically condemn everyone that is in agreement with a political party or a religion or a political group? Is that justice? Is it justice that because you want to fight a political system, that you create a barrier around people's homes in a city and automatically command that anything within that barrier no longer belongs to the country? And in the process of trying to fight injustice in the system, you allow injustice to happen. People are beaten, people are robbed, and you block police officers and ambulances from getting to help those people. Is that justice? It's funny to me when people claim that God was being too harsh when he cast judgments on entire groups of people and entire societies. Yet what they demand for when they see injustice going on in our society is the burning of the entire system. Yet they think God was too harsh. When they see what's going on in our society, they look at one political party and they automatically demonize them and demand for their silencing, even though they say, well, God's too harsh. There are countless examples of things happening and taking place in this world that prove that justice is paralyzed. Countless examples of things happening that are not fair, they're not right, and they're downright evil and mean. So much so that even in thinking about things I want to talk about in the video, it's endless of what I could talk about. It's situations and examples that I could point out, even that have just taken place over the past 3 years, stuff that's happened. You know, we talk a lot about tyranny coming from all different sides. We have this rise of tyranny going on right now where there are private businesses that are not government entities that can completely wipe you off the business sphere and completely take away your voice because of the way that this world is functioning right now. We begin to see that tyranny has nothing to do with the political party, and that a political group or a set of laws and boundaries can't prevent tyranny because tyranny finds a way to rise because tyranny lies in the heart of man, that the heart of man is wicked, that the heart of man is fallen. In Luke chapter 23, we see this situation taking place, this symbolic situation, where we have two people that are set before us, Barabbas and Jesus. And in this situation, as Jesus is being crucified, the authors of these Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels, added in this story. In verse 18, it picks up, but essentially, Pilate gives people the choice to release Barabbas or Jesus. But they cried together, in verse 18, "Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, a man who had been thrown into prison for an insurrection started in the city and for murder." Pilate addressed them once more, desiring to release Jesus, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him." So you see these two options, Jesus and Barabbas. Barabbas, a man who caused insurrection. It's interesting that we lay out that the author takes time to lay out these options, and Barabbas pops up. This story pops up in all three of the Synoptic Gospels. That when you understand what the people wanted, what Israel wanted, they wanted the Messiah to come. They wanted the Messiah to set them free from the bonds of the Roman government, of suppression and tyranny that they were facing. And they thought in their minds that the Messiah was going to come and launch a military campaign to overthrow the government. That's what they were hoping for. Isn't it interesting that the author places two people at the end of Jesus' ministry, Barabbas and Jesus? Barabbas wanting almost the same thing, freedom for his people, starting insurrection, murdering people to get it. Jesus wanting freedom for his people, saying to them, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And then when it's challenged of him, who is my neighbor? Jesus basically says that the worst person that you can think of, the worst person in that culture, the parable that he uses to answer that question, was the lowest of the low, the people that they didn't like. And he basically points out and says, that is your neighbor. That we have these two choices, and the people choose Barabbas. So what do we do when justice is paralyzed? Here's what I wanted to tell you. In your personal life, the world could look a lot different if you just decided no longer to choose Barabbas. That if we're not going to dismiss someone because of their political leanings or their worldview or their viewpoints, but we're going to choose to love them because they are your neighbor. Do not choose Barabbas because the end of Barabbas' way is death. And if you burn the system down, you burn with it because you're a part of the system. If we burn this whole thing down, we burn with it because we're a part of it. That the corruption doesn't just end on people on the outside around you. The corruption goes deep. That we are corrupted. That we need a savior. We need help. That we are just as biased as anyone else. It's easy to point out someone else's bias because it helps you not to look at your own. But man, there have been times where I've been thinking things or saying things about other people and how could they believe this and how could they think this? This is so dumb. And then I start to think, well, I kind of think the same dumb stuff. I kind of believe the same dumb stuff. It's just in agreement with my worldview. But if we start burning down systems because of corruption, then we burn with the system because we are just as corrupt. We saw that the people that try to rise up and do those things and separate and do their own things wind up being just as corrupt as anyone else. And the way we can change this, and the way we can change the course of this, is you can't create culture. You can't create it out of thin air. You can only be culture. You can only be the change that you want to see. So immediately in your own life, you can start today choosing Jesus over Barabbas. To start walking in love, to start being kind to people, and being quick to forgive people because you realize that you are just as bad. That we are all just as bad. I need forgiveness just as much as anyone else that's hurt me. And so do you. Guys, I hope that this video helped you. I hope that you got something from this. I hope that it makes you pause and really think about the things that we're seeing going on in this world and really think about what our position is and our place as people that follow Christ. I don't want to just come off as I'm judging any one political side or any person of any kind of position. I'd love to talk to you more about it. If you comment below, I'd love to have further discussion on this topic with you. Please take the time to like, share, and subscribe and comment. It really does help the channel, and I'm very appreciative of you guys doing that. All right, guys. I'll catch you next time. Peace.